Hi again then guys, and welcome back to a series which we haven't visited in quite some time, Dirtmasters Unplugged, and of course there are many people who have joined the channel since we stopped doing that series who probably don't really know what this is all about. So basically, Dirtmasters Unplugged is a series where we take vehicles which maybe don't have a rally version on Gran Turismo, or maybe they do, but there are other options there, and then turn that vehicle into a rally car. Essentially, this is special projects for rally racing. And speaking of special projects, this is going to be peppered in here and there from week to week, just to break it up a little bit from doing just special projects, to include this as well, and we'll probably include some other tuning also in the coming weeks. But in this particular build, we are going away from the world of customs, and the vast majority of the cars in this series are broad customs, and this one is actually a replica. So once again, very similar to special projects, and this is actually a replica of the Group A rally racing Mitsubishi Galant from the late 80s. Now the performance and specs aren't hugely different from the normal car, but I was actually able to find many of the overarching specs in order to replicate this vehicle. So we'll run through those mechanical specs first of all. There's no real need for any visual side of things for this vehicle because I've just painted it Scotia white, which also comes from Mitsubishi, but it's just a slightly brighter white than the white which the car already comes in. So as I said, we'll go through the mechanical stuff first of all, and then as we usually do, take it out on the dirt to see what it's like. So as I mentioned, the performance and the overall spec on this car isn't hugely different compared to the normal Mitsubishi Galant of this generation. The PP is a little bit different, and yes, the horsepower and weight is as well, but not ridiculously different. Now, according to the specs that I found, the car weighs 1,300 kilos and has between 280 and 300 horsepower. So of course we're going to give it the benefit of the doubt and go for the full 300. You could go for less though if you wanted to, maybe to round it off to 450 pp. Now I've gone for dirt tyres. Of course you could go for snow tyres if that's what you're going to use it on, etc. I've gone for racing brakes, of course, race suspension. I've lowered the ride height a little bit, only around 5mm front and rear. Springs I've increased to 5 front and rear. The dampers to 4, anti-roll I've actually decreased just a little bit to 2, just so that it's not overly stiff, and you've still got a little bit of that manoeuvrability that you'd want from a rally car. We've got neutral camber and tow. Again, you can have some if you want to, but you don't necessarily need it. As far as the gearbox, there are a couple of different gearboxes which this particular car has used, but one of them actually has the exact same ratios as the stock box, and that is the most cost efficient, so I opted to try that out, and as it turns out it performs pretty well with that anyway. So you could change it if you want to, but there's not really any need. Now as far as the drivetrain, I've changed up the diff. I've got the lowest initial torque front and rear, and on all of the acceleration and braking settings, as you can see, the maximum setting. I personally like that setup, some other people may not, so of course feel free to change it. As far as the centre split, I've gone for a 30-70 ratio, and as far as power, we want 300 horsepower, as I said, but you've got a couple of ways of getting that amount of power. You could do it with less upgrades if you're not really bothered about the PP level. I wanted to increase the red line as well as much as possible. You could, for instance, go for a mid-range or a high-range turbo, and that will get you the majority of the way there. I opted instead for more in the engine side of things, apart from aspiration. So as I said, increasing that red line and increasing the torque as well. So I went for the stage 3 engine tune, sports computer, manifold, cat, and then left the rest. Plus of course that oil change. Then reduced the power down to 95.9% or a different amount if you fitted different things. And as far as the weight, you want the stage 1 weight reduction and then add 81 kilos of ballast to bring us up to the actual weight of the real car, which is, as I mentioned earlier, 1,300 kilos. And interestingly, the weight distribution is exactly correct to the real car of 58-42. So it's a pretty simple setup overall. It's not perfectly rounded off to 450 or 460, which is kind of a shame, but PP levels don't tend to be as strictly enforced at least on GT6 in rally racing anyway, so you can change it around if required. So that's it for the tune. Now of course let's take it out on the dirt to see if it can pull off being a rally car. Now, of course, the performance on this car as a rally machine isn't going to worry a Pikes Peak Special or even WRC car anytime soon, but it's a lot of fun to drive. It makes an excellent rally car, which you'd expect from an all-wheel drive Mitsubishi, and it does pay a nice homage to that old-school 80s Group A rally car. So overall, if you do decide to use this build, or maybe some variation therein, in terms of power or gearbox, obviously I hope you have a lot of fun with it, potentially even win some rally events with it as well, if you do decide to race it. But that's it overall for this tune, and if you enjoyed it, be sure to check out the playlist at the end of this video for many more like it. But for now, as always, thanks for watching.